So the Brutal update brought 2 new zones, new blueprints to unlock, and a whole heap of balance issues. Right now, the big talking point is around the new stat system implemented, so let's talk about the new system, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But first, why revamp the old system of strength, skills, and health? The developers seemingly wanted to try and make all playstyles viable. For example, a tactics build was previously kind of underutilised because most players preferred to stack strength and go for that massive one-hit knockout power. With 2x and 4x damage weapons and no cooldown timer on swinging said weapon, strength was the obvious way to go for most damage output and generally the fastest run. The new system introduced brutality, tactics, and survival, replacing the old strength, skills, and health, respectively. While brutality and tactics seem to behave in a very similar way to strength and skills, there are differences. And along with 3 new stat categories, the system introduces colours to every in-game item, which correspond to their matching stat. So red items tied to brutality, purple items are tied to tactics, and green items are tied to survival. More on that in a moment, because that's quite important. Now, tactics and brutality both give a small health boost and provide damage scaling for a mixture of weapons and projectiles. That's right, brutality provides damage increase for weapons, bows, and projectiles like Knife Storm. Tactics also produces damage scaling to a whole host of weapons that were previously considered skill items. Now, to me, and maybe I'm missing something here, brutality now seems like clearly the worst build to go with as things stand. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still very feasibly beat the game with brutality. It's just suboptimal, and in comparison to tactics and survivability, it's just not as fun, not as powerful. With tactics, you can run with a frantic sword and have a big melee damage while simultaneously reducing your cooldown timer on projectiles and wielding most of the best ones. So you're getting all the good projectiles while you're getting the lowest possible cooldown timer on those, and you're getting one of the best melee weapons at full power. This sounds pretty appealing. Alternatively, you can run with brutality, where okay, you get your pick of the melee weapons, but you also have to stack survival if you want to have a chance of making it in the later levels, which can get pretty tough, by the way. This means your cooldown on any projectiles will be fairly long, and because you're also having to pack some health, it feels like getting up to some big damage is actually quite a difficult proposition. At least that's what I've found so far. Couple that with some bad RNG in the later levels, and you might not even have a chance to pick up a decent weapon heading into those tougher areas, and this can make for some grindy endgame action, which isn't much fun at all. And I've personally experienced this quite a few times when opting for a brutality build, just craving the use of my old favourites such as the twin daggers or the wrenching whip. Quite unfortunate for me, considering one of my favourite things about the game was always decimating floor after floor of enemies with one of those two melee weapons. And then there's survival. If you simply stack survival, you've got access to multiple slow weapons like the broadsword, heavy crossbow, and Valmont's whip. You also get tasty damage when parrying with a shield, which also stuns enemies and can also unleash area damage and other perks. Projectiles that scale in damage with survivability build like Biter Swarm and Heavy Turret pack a hell of a punch, and also give you the option to cheese a whole lot when you get into those later levels, doing big damage from afar with almost no risk to you. And if you know what you're doing, you can pull that off quite easily. So of course, with this build, you're also stacking huge hit points, making it by far the most powerful and the safest route of all 3 at the moment. So you can really stack a lot of health and make the game very easy, especially in the end game with that health build at the moment. It seems actually quite overpowered. That being said, as well as the obvious benefits for each of those builds, the game deals something of a wild card in the form of colourless items. Colourless items automatically benefit from your highest stat, meaning that if you run with a 15 health build, for example, and pick up a non-coloured balanced sword, you've now gained most of the benefits of having 15 in brutality, while also retaining the benefits to your shield and having huge hit points. At the time of this video being made, the drawback the devs have added in is that you take 20% more damage when carrying a colourless weapon. Oh, and let's not forget, you also have to pop a cursed chest, which means that you have to kill 10 enemies without taking a single touch, or you'll die instantly. So there is that to consider as well. You must pop a cursed chest, and quite often when you pop these cursed chests, you're going to find that you're not getting an item that's useful for you. So it's not as if in every run you can count on picking up that Colorless balanced sword or wrenching whip or anything. You really have to sort of rely on the luck of the draw. They have, though, made these cursed chests more abundant, and once again, if you know what you're doing, especially if you're on a health build where you've got decent projectiles, where you've got a biter swarm, you can quite often kill off the 10 enemies without putting yourself in harm's way. But that's another talk for another video, but that gives you an idea. The fact is, the 25% extra damage you're taking does seem like a fairly acceptable drawback, considering that the benefit you'll receive, especially when you can easily negate this with minus damage items. So items like the pendant and various items you can pick up at shops give you minus damage, whether that's 10 or 20%. So it's quite easy to stack these items and negate that current penalty that you'll get on these colourless items. So that's something to consider as well. So to go for a run with massive health and a colourless weapon, it's hugely powerful, and it's a very easy way to beat the game. I don't necessarily know whether that's a bad thing. I think that's fine. You know, if you get lucky, then okay, you might find yourself with an easy run, and you do still to a certain extent have to know what you're doing, or you can take massive damage that will snuff you out even with a lot of hit points. Overall, as the game stands right now, there's lots of fun to be had with any build that you want to go with, okay? But I'd love to see the devs implement some new perks to Brutality to make it more worth your while doing, okay? So right now going Brutality and Health seems to end in a less than enjoyable experience for me personally. Maybe you find it different though. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave your thoughts in the comments, reply back, let me know what you think. If you've got some ideas on how I can make more fun with the Brutality build, I'd love to hear your ideas on that, and I'll certainly be giving them a try. Thanks very much for watching this video. Leave your comment now.